Hello and welcome to the Target UPSC Prelims 2025 Current Affairs Revision Series of Drishti IAS. And in today's episode, the subject that we will be discussing is economy. So this is basically the part 1 of economy. So let us begin. And the first news that we will be covering is with regard to the Human Development Report for the year 2023 and 24. Human Development Report question can directly be asked from the Human Development Index or the Human Development Report. So first and foremost, this is for the year 2023-2024 and the title of the report was Breaking the Gridlock, Reimagining Cooperation in a Polarized World. So this is the title of the HDR 2023-24. Remember the year because year becomes important. This is not for the year 2025. 2023 to 2024, and then the rank of India is 134th. So India ranks 134th in the Human Development Index, and the first position has been taken by Switzerland. And where is Switzerland situated, in which continent? That is Europe, a landlocked country. And the HDR, the report is released by UNDP, that is United Nations Development Program. One of the important aspect you should know that which report is released by whom, because this can also be directly be asked in the examination. Now highlights of the report. So the top 3 countries are Switzerland, Norway and Iceland. Now coming on to the bottom 3 countries, so that is Somalia, South Sudan and Central African Republic. And Somalia, South Sudan and Central African Republic, all 3 belongs to the continent Africa. Now coming on to the major economies with regards to the Human Development Report. So that is United States, UK, Japan and Russia. So India is not there among the major economies. So that is US, UK, Japan and Russia. Now the countries that did not feature on the index. So the countries which was not a part of the index was the Democratic Republic of Korea, that is North Korea, and the Monaco. So North Korea basically does not take part in these kind of reports. Now coming on to the major aspect from where the questions can be directly be asked, and that is what is the India's performance. So the average life expectancy of India reached 67.7 years in the year 2022, up from 62.7 years the previous year. It means 2021, in the year 2021 the average life expectancy was around 62.7. in the year 2022 the average life expectancy increased 67.7 year. Now what is the meaning of the term average life expectancy? It means that averagely how much or the number of years that the population of the country is living. So that is an average. So there are people who also live for 90 years, 95 years, but there are people who live for 10 years, 15 years. So it is an average. Then HDI score or the Human Development Score is, India received a HDI score of 0.644 in the year 2022, ranking it 134th out of 193 countries. So the total number of countries which took part was 193. India's rank was 134. And this categorizes India under medium human development. So not high, not low. India is at the medium human development. Now India ranked 108 out of 166 countries in the year 2022 in the Gender Inequality Index list. So among the Gender Inequality Index list, India ranked 108th. Now coming on to what is Human Development Report. So the Human Development Report has been released since the year 1990 and explores a variety of topics through the human development perspective. So there are basically 3 indicators on the basis of which the Human Development Index is given, and first and foremost is the life expectancy at birth, and this is also a Sustainable Development Goal 3. Now life expectancy at birth means that when the infant is getting the birth, how much is the life expectancy? It means at the time of birth how much is the or how much average life expectancy is there. Then comes the next aspect, and that is the expected years of schooling, which is under the Sustainable Development Goal 4.3. Now expected years of schooling means that how much years a person is spending in a school. Like there are, for example, there are people who studies till 12th standard, but there are people who studies only till 6th standard, till 8th standard, till 10th standard. So expected years of schooling. Then comes the next aspect, and that is the gross national income per capita, that is the sustainable development goal 8.5. Now gross national income per capita, it means that per capita, on an average, per person, what is the income, and that is sustainable development goal 8.5. And within the expected years of schooling, there is one more aspect, and that is the mean year of schooling, and that is the sustainable development goal 4.4. Now mean years of schooling means that on an average the population which is studying in an school, like for example above the age group of 20 or above the age group of 25. Now coming on to the next topic, and that is the Nobel Prize winner in economics for the year 2024. So if we will talk about the Nobel Prize, so Nobel Prize is given on the name of Alfred Nobel. And then if we talk about Nobel Prize, so they are given in different fields, like for example physics, chemistry, literature, medicine, peace, and then there is Nobel Prize in economics. So going by the person who has received Nobel Prize in the year 2024 for the subject economics, so it has been shared by Daron Acemoglu, Simon Johnson and James A. Robinson. So basically there is a rule also while giving the Nobel Prize, that when it is shared among people, so it can be shared among 3 people. Individually also it can be given, and the sharing can be done among 3 people. Then, and the reason for which these people have got the Nobel Prize, and that is for studies of how institutions are formed and affect prosperity. This is the topic for which they have received the Nobel Prize in economics, and the modern day significance of their work in understanding why some countries are wealthy while some remain poor. That with time, how is it that some countries are able to generate wealth while other countries are not able to generate wealth? What are the reasons for it? Now about the Nobel Prize in economics, so the award is also known as it is not that it is just known by the name of Nobel Prize in economics, it is also known by the name of Svergies Riksbank Prize. Svergies Riksbank Prize, very difficult pronunciation I must say, and this was established by Swedish Central Bank in the year 1968. So this was not set up, this Nobel Prize in economics was later on added. Earlier the other 5 was there, but the Nobel Prize in economics was later on added into the list of the Nobel Prize, and it complements the Nobel Prize in physics, chemistry, literature, medicine and peace. Then the economics prize is the second most male dominated prize after the Nobel Prize in physics, because Nobel Prize in physics has basically been won by the males, but after the Nobel Prize in physics, it is the Nobel Prize in economics which has been won by the males. There are only 3 females who have won the Nobel Prize in economics, and that is Elinor Ostrom in the year 2009. Second is Esther Duflo in the year 2019. And then comes Claudia Goldin very recently in the year 2023. Now comes the next topic, and that is the new Makhana board. Very, very important topic from the exam respect and from the prelims. For the upcoming prelims, star mark this point or star mark this topic in your preparation. Very high chances of getting asked in the examination. So it has been announced in the Union Budget of 2025-26 by the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, that is establishment of the Makhana board, and the aim is to improve the production, processing, value addition and the marketing of makhana, as makhana is also known as black diamond, also known as fox nut, and is also known as a super food. And one of the reasons that why is it called a super food, because of its nutritional value. High fiber content, high energy content, then there is potassium, then there is calcium. So the nutritional value of makhana is very, very high. So the Makhana board has been established to improve the production, processing, value addition and marketing of makhana and make makhana a global product. Then the objective is to provide assistance, training and benefits of government schemes to farmers. So if the government is giving out any scheme for the farmers, so farmers must be able to take advantage of that scheme. And the budget allocation is 100 crore rupees. Now let us talk about the makhana. So the scientific name of makhana is Uriel ferox. Uriel ferox. Now let us talk about few other properties of makhana. So that is, they are plant of tropical and subtropical climate. So they are basically grown at the tropical and subtropical climate, and it is also known as black diamond. The ideal growing climate, if we talk about of makhana, so the temperature is required is from 20 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity is around 50% to 90%. Now relative humidity means the moisture content which is present in the air. So that is required from 50% to 90%. This is the range, and the annual rainfall is from 100 centimeter to 250 centimeter. Makhana is now recognized as a superfood because of its nutritional value, and Bihar contributes around 90% of India's makhana production, and that is also the reasons of the North Bihar, and specifically it is the district Darbhanga which contributes the maximum percentage in the production of makhana. Now what are the steps taken to promote makhana cultivation? So few of the steps are: National Research Center for Makhana, which was established in the year 2001 in Darbhanga. Then there is National Institute of Food Technology, which promotes makhana processing. Then under the One District One Product, makhana recognized as the One District One Product from the district of Darbhanga and Muzaffarpur in Bihar. Now Darbhanga is known for the production of makhana, but Muzaffarpur is also known for the production of lychee, which has also received the GI tag, the Shahi lychee of Muzaffarpur. In year 2022, Mithila makhana got the GI tag also, and which got the global attention. People's global attention went on to makhana, that how healthy and how nutritional it is, and that is how the prominence of makhana also increased among the people. Next topic is the Project Nexus of the Reserve Bank of India. So the Central Bank of India has launched a Project Nexus, and Project Nexus is that RBI joins Project Nexus to enable instant cross-border retail payments. Now instant cross-border retail payment means, like for example, this is one person who is in India, this is second person, like for example, who is in Dubai. Now the person wants to send money to that person. So from India, that person will be able to make transaction, the instant transaction, cross-border transaction, retail transaction, and this will be done through the instant payment service. Like for example, the UPI, that is the Unified Payment Interface in India, one of the examples of the fast payment. So from India, in just one click, and in no time, within seconds, the amount will be transferred cross-border. Now, what is Project Nexus? It is a multilateral international initiative. Multilateral means that it is cross-border. Then, to enable instant cross-border retail payments by interconnecting domestic instant payment systems. Example of instant payment system is the UPI, and the example that I just told you. Now, IPS is an electronic system that facilitates interbank funds transfer and sends payment confirmation to the recipient and originator within a minute or less. Like as of now, many of us, by using the UPI, we are able to make the daily payments within seconds, and with the Digital India mission of the government, more and more, and the number of UPI transactions are increasing on daily basis, and the number of UPI transactions in a year in India goes into millions, and the amount transferred, the quantity or the number goes into billions. And that is how the payment system, the digital payment system in India has been revolutionized by the UPI. Now, it has been conceptualized by the innovation hub of the BIS, that is the Bank for International settlements. Now, what is Bank for International Settlement? So, it was established in the year 1930. Headquarters is in Basel, Switzerland, and the ownership is held by 63 central banks. So, within the Bank of International Settlement, it is the central banks of many countries which takes part under it and formulates policies. So, Nexus will connect IPS from India and 4 Asian countries, that is Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore and Thailand. Now, the next aspect is the benefits of Project Nexus. So, if the project has come up, what are the benefits that people will receive from it? And that is, it simplifies cross-border payments. Yes, reducing complexities, cost and transaction limit. And this is one of the biggest benefit. And this is also that the number of transactions will also increase cross-border. It provides affordable and scalable service for all payment service providers, because earlier what used to happen is that if cross-border any person wants to send any kind of money, then they will have to go to the bank and the process used to take much time. So now that can be done within seconds. Then it eliminates interoperability gaps by increasing standardization and harmonization across various systems. Now the next aspect is, that is, SEBI issues new guidelines to streamline operations of credit rating agencies. New guidelines by SEBI. Now recently SEBI has issued new guidelines for the CRA, that is the credit rating agencies. Now credit rating agencies are the agencies which scrutinizes an agency and talks about how stable the agency is and whether agency is financially doing well or not. Now, few of the key guidelines by SEBI is that the credit rating agencies are required to communicate the ratings to the companies within 1 working day. So, within 1 working day, they are required to communicate with regard to the ratings or any kind of change in ratings that has taken place. So, companies may request a review or appeal of the rating decision within 3 working days. So, if the companies do not agree with the rating that has been given to them, they can raise an issue within 3 working days. So, the CRAs are required to publish a press release on their website and inform the stock exchange debenture trustee within 7 working days. So, a press release needs to be updated on the website and within 7 working days. Then CRA must maintain records of these for 10 years. So, the credit rating agencies needs to have the records for 10 years. So, 10 years is a lot of time. Now, what are credit rating? What do you mean by credit rating? So, that is a quantitative assessment of a borrower's credit worthiness in general or with respect to a specific loan or financial obligation. So, basically, a credit rating can be assigned to any entity that wishes to borrow money, whether it is individual, corporation, a state or provincial authority or a sovereign government. So, anyone who wants to borrow money and how the financial status of any company is. So, that can be given by the credit agencies. Now, about the credit rating agency. So, a credit rating agency is a company that assesses the financial strength of companies and government entities, particularly their ability to meet principal and interest payments on their debt. So, whether the company has the sufficient funding that they can sustain on their own and they are not doing any kind of fraud or the money laundering aspect or the mismanagement of the funds of people is not being done. Then big 3 rating agencies are, so the big 3 credit rating agencies are Fitch Ratings, Moody's Investors Service and Standard & Poor are the 3 big international credit rating agencies, and that control about 95% of the global rating business. So around 95% business has been dominated by the Fitch Ratings, Moody's Investors Service and the Standard & Poor's. So these are the 3 big daddies of the credit rating agencies. Now there are 6 credit rating agencies in India, and that is under SEBI, recognized by the SEBI. So in India, these 6 agencies are, first is CRISIL, then ICRA, CARE, SMERA, Fitch India and Brickwork Ratings. So basically you must have seen in the newspapers that someone has this, Moody's has given this organization the rating of A or has downgraded the rating of a company from A to B. So these kind of news you will always get to read in the newspaper. So these are basically the examples that how the credit rating agencies are working and what the organizations is doing and how they are feeling is the stability of the organization. Now the next topic is RBI liberalizes FEMA rules to facilitate cross-border transactions. So FEMA rules and cross-border transactions. So this has basically been done with regard to the internationalization of rupee. Now internationalization of rupee, if in India we have always heard about the topic of the dominance of dollar. So whenever we talk about the international market, so the trade is basically done by the dollars. So that means if this is one country, this is second country, this is India, India is doing trade with Russia or any other country. So basically the international trade is being done under between two countries, and that is the payment is being done by US dollar or through US dollar. Now internationalization of rupee means that the dominance of US must decrease, that is de-dollarization aspect, and that is if this is country number 1 India, this is country number 2 like for example Malaysia, and if the trade is being done then the payment needs to be done in rupee. It means the international dominance of rupee needs to increase. So internationalization of rupee. Now the RBI, that is the Reserve Bank of India, has liberalized the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999, and the objective is to promote the use of Indian rupee for settlement of cross-border transactions. That is internationalization of rupee. So the aspect which I just told you. Then what are the changes that has been made in FEMA? So that is individual resident outside India can now open Indian rupee accounts in overseas branches of authorized dealer banks. It means that this is a country US, there is an bank in US, and any person or an individual who is residing outside India and the person is staying in US, now the person can open in the overseas branches of the authorized bank an account which is in rupee. So the transaction can also be done in rupee. Indian resident, fine, living outside India can now open Indian rupee account in overseas branches of the authorized dealer banks. Now imagine there is any bank which is in US, Indian origin person living in US can now open an account which can deal in rupee in US. Then can transact with other individuals resident outside India using their repatriable INR accounts such as SNRR and SVRO, that is popularly known as the Special Non-Resident Rupee Account and the Special Non-Resident Vostro Account. Vostro account, this term you will hear a lot in news. Now we will know about what is Nostro and also what is Vostro account. So they can also open SNRR account for genuine transactions in rupee. But the basic funda is that accounts can be opened, but the basic funda is that transaction in those accounts can be done in rupees, and these transactions can be international. It means someone living outside India can send money into India in rupees. Someone living outside India can open account in any authorized bank and can do transaction in rupees. Now let us understand the Vostro account and the Nostro account. So what happens is in a Vostro account is that it is a bank account opened in another country such as India by a foreign bank in local currency. Now imagine this is India. Fine. Now there is a foreign bank, like imagine there is Bank of London, Bank of Switzerland, any bank. Now this Bank of Switzerland opens an account in India and is doing transaction in rupees. Vostro accounts. Bank account opened in another country, like for example India or some other country, by a foreign bank in local currency. Then comes the Nostro account. Now, what is the meaning of the term nostro account? So, it is an account opened by a domestic bank such as an Indian bank in a foreign currency with a foreign bank located abroad. So, see, account opened by a domestic bank. Domestic bank means SBI, PNB. So, an account opened by a domestic bank such as an Indian bank in a foreign currency with a foreign bank located abroad. Like for example, this is US. SBI opens an account in US and opens an account in any foreign currency, like for example dollar, and also opens an account with any of the bank of the US. This is Vostro account, this is Nostro account. Vostro account, it is a bank account opened in another country by a foreign bank in local currency. It means in local currency the transaction can be done. The transaction can be done in rupees. While the Nostro account is an account opened by a domestic bank in a foreign currency with a foreign bank. Domestic bank, foreign currency, foreign bank. Now, this was about Vostro account and Nostro account. Basically, the funda is to make more and more transaction being done in rupees, local currency, so that the dominance of rupee can be increased in the international market and the international trade can be done in rupees. Now, internationalization of rupee, the process that involves promoting the use of local currency in cross-border transactions. So, why is there a need for internationalization of rupee? So, all over the world, around 88.3% of the global trade or the global trade has been done in US dollars, and this is followed by euro, Japanese yen and pound sterling. And the transactions in rupee which has been done is very, very less, and that is around only 1.7%. So, we can very clearly see that the dominance is of dollar and the rupee is as of now very, very weak. And the difference between the rupee and dollar is also at a, you can say, all-time high. So, it is on regular basis breaching a $1 equals to around 87 rupees or much more than it also. Now, steps taken for internationalization of rupee. So, in March 2023, RBI has established a mechanism for trade settlement in rupees with 18 countries. So, trade settlement in rupees with 18 countries. Now, banks from these countries have been permitted to open the special rupee Vostro accounts for settling payments in Indian rupees. So, these Vostro accounts will help in making the payments in rupees. Then, July 2022, RBI issued a circular on international trade settlement in Indian rupees. So, international trade settlement can also be done in Indian rupees. Like for example, India does business with Russia and has made payment in local currency, also with Dubai and the Middle Eastern countries. RBI enabled external commercial borrowings in rupees. Then, according to the annual report of 2023-24, RBI released a strategic action plan for 2024-25, and the aim is promoting the internationalization of rupee so that the dominance of dollar becomes low, even though it is very, very far away. But the aim is basically to increase the trade in rupees. Then comes the next aspect, and that is the angel tax. So, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman abolishes angel tax to support Indian startups. So, what has happened is that the Union Finance Minister has abolished the angel tax for all classes of investors while presenting the Union Budget 2024-25. So, angel tax has been abolished to bolster the Indian startup ecosystem, boost the entrepreneurial spirit and support innovation. Now, what is angel tax? It was first implemented in the year 2012 and was extended through the Finance Act of 2023. Now, what happens is, what is an angel tax? So, it is basically a tax that must be paid on the funds which are raised by the unlisted companies or the startups through the issuance of shares in off-market transactions if they exceed the fair market value of the company. Now, imagine this is a startup. It is a startup, and the startup takes money from any angel investor. Now the startup takes money from the angel investor, and even though the startup is unlisted, but also gives its share at a much higher price, and the price is much higher as the fair market price, and the angel investor in return either gets the percentage or gets the equity of the company or takes the share of the company. So a tax which is being taken by the startup over the money that they have taken from any of the angel investor or anyone at a price much higher than the fair market value. Now angel tax was imposed under section 56(2) of the Income Tax Act of 1961. Then angel tax is collected by the Income Tax Department. Now who are angel investors? An angel investor is an early stage investor in a startup, and these are basically the wealthy individuals. These are the wealthy individuals who are looking to invest in a company, whom they find that these companies have a great idea and these companies will do well in future. They have the capacity to scale up and the idea will work in future. So they basically invest their money in the company, and they in return they get the percentage, or they can get the equity shares, or also they get the partnership in the startup. Now the next aspect is the RBI monetary policy 90 years on. So the RBI has completed 90 years of its first monetary policy, and if we talk about the monetary policy of RBI, then it is the policy through which the RBI controls the currency and money supply of the country. But let us talk about what is the main objective of the monetary policy or the monetary policy committee of the RBI. So the basic idea is to maintain price stability, inflation and economic growth. So price stability, it means that they need to look whether inflation must not increase or decrease very much, and it should be in the limit of 4 ± 2. And with the price stability, the economic aspect or the growth aspect can be looked into. Now about the monetary policy committee. So 45ZB of the RBI Act of 1934, amended in 2016, it empowers the central government to constitute a monetary policy committee, and the number of people or the members of the monetary policy committee are 6. So the objective is the monetary policy committee shall determine the policy rate necessary to achieve the inflation target. So the basic funda is to keep the inflation or the price stability in control. The decision of the monetary policy committee will be binding on the banks, and banks needs to follow it. Then what is the formation of MPC? It consists of 6 members, and the governor of the Reserve Bank of India is the chairman of the MPC, and then the deputy governor of RBI is one of the members, and one officer of the bank to be nominated by the central board. So these are the 3 members, and the 3 members are appointed by the central government, and that is how the total number of members comes to 6. So 3 members are appointed by the central government. One is the governor, one is the deputy governor, and one is the officer of the bank nominated by the central board. And this 3 members of appointed by the central government is also a point of contention among the MPC, that is the involvement of the government and the transparency and the accountability aspect of the MPC came into question with it. Now what are the tools of the monetary policy? We will not go into very deep under it because that will take a lot of time. Let's just look at it. Now the tools of monetary policy is repo rate. So there is repo rate and reverse repo rate. Repo rate is basically the rate at which the Reserve Bank of India gives loan to the other scheduled commercial banks, and that is for the short term period. Then there is standing deposit facility rate, marginal standing facility rate like for overnight. Then LAF, that is liquidity adjustment facility, LAF corridor, main liquidity management tools, fine tuning operations, reverse repo rate, the rate at which the scheduled commercial banks give money to RBI. Then there is bank rate. Bank rate is that every bank needs to give loan at this rate. Then there is cash reserve ratio, then there is statutory liquidity ratio, and then there is open market operations. So these are few of the tools of the monetary policy. So there is OMO, CRR, SLR. These are the topics which can be directly be asked into the examination, both in the prelims and the mains exam. So these are the topics that we covered in today's episode, and this was it about the today's episode. And in the end, a prelims MCQ. And like always, you people need to tell me the answer in the comments below. So the question is, in the context of international trade and banking, what is a Vostro account? First, an account that an Indian bank holds in a foreign currency in its own country. Second, an account that a foreign bank holds with an Indian bank in Indian rupees. Third is an account that allows Indian exporters to receive payments in cryptocurrencies. And last is a special account used by Indian citizens to remit money abroad under the liberalized remittance scheme. I hope that we can very easily solve this one because we have studied this. So give me the answer in the comments below. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.